The old theater smelled faintly of dust, velvet, and decades of music that had soaked into the wooden stage. People said that when a place held enough performances, the echoes never truly left. They hid in the rafters and walls, waiting for the next singer brave enough to wake them up. On a warm summer evening in 1969, the Riverside Theater buzzed with excitement. Posters outside announced a special tribute night celebrating the music of Elvis Presley. Inside, the seats filled quickly with people wearing bright smiles and eager expressions. Some had slicked their hair back like Elvis. Others wore flashy jackets that sparkled under the lobby lights. Inside the hall, musicians tuned guitars and tested microphones. The stage curtain hung heavy and red, glowing softly beneath the lights. Among the audience was a man named Danny Carter. Danny was 27 years old, tall, lean, with messy brown hair and a grin that suggested he never took life too seriously. He worked days fixing cars at a small garage 2 blocks away. At night, he played guitar in bars where people cared more about their drinks than the music. But Danny loved music anyway. He had come tonight with his best friend Marcus, who had practically dragged him here. "Come on," Marcus said as they found their seats near the middle rows. "It's an Elvis tribute night. You love Elvis songs." Danny laughed. "I love them, sure. Doesn't mean I want to hear 50 people butcher them." Marcus grinned. "Maybe someone will surprise you." Danny leaned back in the seat. "If anyone here can out-sing Elvis, I'll eat my guitar." Marcus burst out laughing. The crowd slowly quieted as the host stepped on stage. He wore a shiny blue suit and held the microphone like it was the most important thing in the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said warmly, "tonight we celebrate the music of the king." The crowd erupted in cheers. And who knows, maybe somewhere out there is the next great voice. Danny nudged Marcus and whispered, "Yeah, right." The first performer came out. Then another. And another. Some were decent. Some were terrible. One guy forgot half the lyrics and just hummed awkwardly. The audience clapped politely anyway. Danny's grin grew wider with each performance. By the 5th singer, he leaned toward Marcus and said quietly, "You know what? I bet I could out-sing half these guys." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You, on that stage?" Danny shrugged. "Why not? You're joking." "Mostly." Marcus suddenly stood up halfway from his seat. Danny grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" But Marcus was already waving toward the stage. "Hey," Marcus shouted. "My friend can do better." Danny's eyes widened. "Oh no. Sit down. Sit down right now." But it was too late. The host looked toward them with interest. "Oh," he said into the microphone. "We have a challenger in the audience." The crowd turned. Hundreds of eyes landed on Danny. Marcus pointed directly at him. "This guy says he can out-sing Elvis." The audience laughed loudly. Danny felt his face turn red. He stood slowly, raising his hands. No, that's not what I." But the host was smiling widely. "Well, ladies and gentlemen," he said, "what do you think? Should we give him a chance?" The crowd cheered. Danny looked at Marcus with pure betrayal. "You're dead after this," Marcus whispered back, laughing. "Just go have fun." The host motioned toward the stage. "Come on up." Danny hesitated. His heart thumped faster. This was supposed to be a joke. But something in the cheering crowd made his feet move. Step by step, he walked down the aisle. People clapped as he passed. Some shouted playful comments. "Good luck. Don't embarrass yourself." Danny climbed the stairs onto the stage. The lights suddenly felt blinding. He could barely see the audience now. Just shapes. A sea of faces in darkness. The host handed him the microphone. "So," the host said, smiling, "what's your name?" "Danny." "Well, Danny, which Elvis song will you sing?" Danny thought for a moment. Then he said quietly, "If I Can Dream." A few people in the crowd murmured. It wasn't the easiest song. The band behind him glanced at each other. The pianist nodded slowly. Danny took a deep breath. He hadn't planned this. Not even a little. The music began softly. Piano notes floated across the theater. Danny closed his eyes. For a moment, the crowd expected a joke. They expected something silly. But when Danny sang the first line, the room shifted. His voice wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished like a professional singer. But it had something else. Something real. Something raw. People in the audience leaned forward slightly. Danny gripped the microphone. The nerves faded as the melody carried him forward. Every note came from somewhere deep in his chest. The band members exchanged glances. The drummer whispered under his breath, "Whoa." The audience grew quieter. Danny's voice rose stronger with each line. He wasn't trying to copy Elvis. He wasn't imitating the famous style. He sang the song his own way. And somehow, that made it even more powerful. The theater felt different now. Electric. When Danny reached the chorus, his voice filled every corner of the room. A few people in the crowd looked at each other with surprise. The laughter from earlier had vanished. Now there was only silence. The kind of silence that happens when people realize they're witnessing something unexpected. Danny's confidence grew. The nerves disappeared completely. It felt like the stage had always belonged to him. The band followed him carefully, adjusting to his rhythm. The music swelled. Danny sang the final verse with everything he had. Emotion poured from every word. His voice cracked slightly on one note. But somehow, that imperfection made it even more beautiful. When he reached the final line, he held the last note longer than anyone expected. The sound rang through the theater like a bell. Then, silence. For one long second, Danny lowered the microphone slowly. He looked out into the dark audience, suddenly nervous again. Had he messed up? Had he gone too far? Then the first clap came. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the entire theater exploded into applause. People jumped to their feet. Cheers echoed through the room. Marcus was shouting louder than anyone. Danny stood frozen. The host walked back on stage, shaking his head in disbelief. "Well," he said into the microphone, "I did not see that coming." The crowd laughed and clapped again. Danny rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I was just joking," he said. The host smiled. Sometimes the best performances start that way. People continued cheering. Some shouted for another song. Danny laughed nervously. "I think one was enough." But the host wasn't done. "Danny," he said, "how long have you been singing?" Danny shrugged. "In my garage. Sometimes in bars." The host stared at him. "Just bars?" Danny nodded. The band leader stepped forward. "You've got a voice, kid." Danny didn't know what to say. He walked off stage to thunderous applause. Marcus met him at the aisle with wide eyes. "What was that?" Danny laughed breathlessly. "I don't know. You said it was a joke." "It was." Marcus shook his head. "Man, you just stole the whole show." Danny glanced back at the stage. Another performer was preparing to sing. But the energy in the room had changed. People kept looking toward Danny. Whispering. Smiling. The rest of the night passed in a blur. After the show ended, several people approached him. One man handed him a business card. "You should come audition at my club," he said. Another woman said, "That voice deserves a bigger stage." Danny felt overwhelmed. Marcus slapped his back proudly. "Told you someone might surprise us tonight." Danny laughed. "Yeah, turns out it was me." They stepped outside into the cool night air. The theater lights glowed behind them. Danny looked back at the old building. Just hours ago, he had walked in as a guy joking with his friend. Now he walked out with something different. A possibility. Marcus folded his arms. "So," he said, "when you become famous, remember who pushed you on stage." Danny smirked. "Oh, I'll remember." He paused. "And I'll remind everyone that it started as a joke." Marcus grinned. "Best joke ever." Danny looked up at the stars above the quiet street. Somewhere deep inside, he realized something strange. Maybe tonight wasn't just a random moment. Maybe it was the beginning of something. All because one man jokingly tried to out-sing Elvis, and discovered a voice he never knew the world was waiting to hear.